Welcome back, and make sure you're watching in 4K. This is one of the few episodes where we'll be in pure 4K high def. Normally, we're only doing it in 1080p. This time, it's not going to be more video, it's going to be pictures that we've outputted using the software. Because I custom coded this myself, I have a feature where if you push the L key, it'll actually output an 8K resolution screenshot. So that is what's on my 4K screen right now that I'm able to move around and explore, because obviously my monitor, it'd be about double the size. So it's really nice. What we're looking at particularly today is multiple observers. This is something that globe models can never do and never will be able to do. Stellarium can't do it, Sky Safari can't do it, and that damn Walter Bislin can't do it either. So make sure you know the difference between models. Don't let globers strawman you or lie to you. This is an extremely unique and powerful astronomical system, and with multiple observers, we really get to see how Earth's toroidal field works and operates. You can see that as observers move around, you can see how their perspective also changes, and you can see that dome refraction. That dome refraction is what we learned about last time and what we discovered in Antarctica with the final experiment for the 24-hour sun. We now know that the flat Earth model has a 24-hour sun, and it's due to the way light shines through a firmament. Now be very careful. Don't let globers strawman you and tell you it's a reflection. We've already heard that. You can listen to some of the recent live streams. Globers want to tell you how your flat Earth model is. They do that so they can misrepresent it. It's called the strawman logical fallacy, and if they're able to convince you of their lies and you fall for it, that's what they want. Do not let globers strawman this. The light is shining through the firmament, and it works perfect. And it's really cool as we see how the closer you get to the equator, you almost align yourselves perfectly with Earth's torus field. And that's why when you're at latitude 0, which is the equator, you can look left and right to see both the north celestial pole and the south celestial pole. So it's important to also pay attention to which flat earthers you listen to. If anyone tries to tell you there's no such thing as the south celestial pole, they're probably saying it to troll you for attention. Who knows, but that means their foundational knowledge of astronomy is just not there. Because like, we have flat earthers in New Zealand and Australia who film the south celestial pole all the time. You can see star trails. For those of us who are senior flat earth researchers, stuff like that just sounds silly, and you can test it out yourself. The way perspective works is one of the ways that a lot of us knew there would have to be a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, because you can see as how you approach the 60-degree south parallel restricted zone, as you get into the area where you need a permit, your perspective starts to rise, and you can see how the sun, due to the dome's refraction, would be in your field of vision. Just mathematically, without even having these visual models to look at, you can just tell that logically that makes sense. I was recently listening to senior researcher Joe Hanby, and he was describing how he was talking to someone in the south, and she saw the sun kind of going away and away, much in the exact same way that Austin and Jaron did when they were in I think Punta Arenas. They got to see the sun set in the south, and you could tell that already they were realizing in their head that, yeah, there's gonna be a 24-hour sun, because they're smart people too. They can do the math. It's not too hard. If you walk 10 degrees south, so every degree is 69 miles. It's 1 mile per it's 1 degree per every 69 miles. So if you're walking 10 degrees, whatever that is, south, then you can know that the sun will rise 10 degrees higher. And that's exactly what happened when they did their first live stream in Antarctica, and we saw the sun. I think it was west it was facing. Like, I knew right then that the firmament trackers model has been confirmed. Everything I've been saying is true. Everything Joe Hanvey's been saying is true. Everything that people have hypothesized about dome refraction has come true. Yeah, this is good because this lets you see the 4 observers on opposite sides of flat Earth. So everyone's like facing their back to back. So like this person up here will have his back to the person way down there. So this person here is facing the sun. This person here is facing north. Now this person over here is facing south to see the sun right now at this time. Does that make sense? Now, when the sun physically moves around and it does another 180 degrees, this person up here that was previously facing south would now face north to see the sun. Much like how we see right here, this person's facing north, this person faces over. Everything works in the toroidal geometry of our Earth, and it's extremely beautiful when you can see it with multiple observers, because that pattern, that Taurus field that's blue, and the star trails that you can see yourself at night start to click in your head, and you go, okay, Earth has to be flat. How else could we have a south celestial pole with a counterclockwise, like, north and south, it rotates in different directions. How else could that happen unless the Earth is flat? So with multiple observers, you get to see something that I don't know, because I'm not the best programmer in the world. I figure if a globe software wanted to, they could. So there's really one of two things. Either you just can't, because if you try to wrap what I did around a ball, it all breaks down and you just end up with a stellarium. So stellarium, just like one of these people, it'll give you like a first person view from one of these, but globe apps will never let you zoom out and see how the world actually works. They'll never show you where the sun is actually circling around. They'll only show you some little first person view, and then in the top screen they'll say, yeah, the sun's 300,000 whatever miles away, but they won't model it. You'll never get an actual globe model. I think I'm going backwards. Let me see. Okay, yeah. So what's going to come up now will be the sun doing its complete rotation around Earth. So see that? Look at that. So you see how the perspective rotates for every observer. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. This law of perspective, you could say, holds true as the sun rotates around the great circle of Earth. This is called the zenith location. So those of you who have Flat Earth Days clock app, you can see this exact same rotation, and that's how we know that what I'm saying is true, and it's also how I know what Dave's saying is true. The models complement each other perfectly. Now we go to the observer, which is just a step further. We now actually want to try to understand, how does light shine through a firmament? What are the optical properties of that? Now, let me go back up here just so we can talk a little bit about what these lines mean. And you can turn these lines off in the model. You don't need them on if you don't want. But the whole idea is that it's the point A to point B of light. How it actually travels, we don't actually know yet, but we do know point A, which is the zenith location. You can look this up online. It's when people look straight up. You can't argue against it. And then we also know point B, where the observer looks and sees light. Now, everything in the middle of that is the difference between the globe and flat Earth and anything hollow Earth, concave Earth, who has the correct physical geometry that makes sense, who has the correct cosmological model, and it really gets complex. And I also want to explain something. You'll hear the conspiracy theorists like Will Duffy say there's only two models. It's either like the globe model or the flat Earth model, but that's not true. For example, when we're talking about the globe model, you have heliocentric spherical cosmology, but then you also have geocentric spherical cosmology, and there's a whole field of PhD doctors like Robert Bennett who seriously argue that the Earth's a globe, but it's just the center of the universe instead of being in that weird heliocentric. Like, no matter what, we know the heliocentric theory where it's surrounded by the sun worship and all that occult. It's not true. But a lot of people, when they start studying this, they don't like flat Earth and they just realize, okay, it's a globe, but it's the center of the universe. So it's really important to realize there's so many different models. Flat Earth seems like the most realistic model to me, because when you get into spherical geocentric cosmology, you start to get the exact same problems that you have with the heliocentric globe. There's no curve, there's all the gravity, you have to do weird stuff. Yeah, and where we get the flat Earth, everything just works and makes perfect sense. I want to cycle through these again, just because it's really, really powerful to see this and to have it in 4K. Because a lot of you might actually have like a nice 4K TV that you have your YouTube on that you're going to be watching this on, and if so, make sure it's in 4K. Don't let it automatically stream in the 1080p or you're missing out on a once in a video opportunity. I'll probably never do this again. And if you're wondering why I don't want to do it again, it's because it's just slow. When you have these huge masses, like each photo here is 10 megabytes. So you can imagine how doing a video is going to be almost impossible just because I don't have like a gaming computer. If you guys actually have a gaming computer with like a dedicated graphics card, buy the academic version. It's only $20 and you're gonna love it. That's what I've been using to make all these content stuff with, because you get the native rendering. So whatever your computer will render in, that's exactly what you'll see on your screen. And then just like I said before, you have a whole bunch of features, because since I coded it myself, I put everything in it that I could possibly want. I know myself, I don't want to have to push print screen and get a 1080p, because I have many monitors, but let's say you're using your laptop and you only have 1080p resolution. Well, I want to just push a button, wait a couple seconds, and have like an 8K massive high-res image come out that I can now use for whatever I want. And you can do any resolution you want. It's a very, very powerful framework is that I coded this in. It's called Babylon. So the 3D capabilities are absolutely fascinating, and it's one of the reasons why I was able to make this model and have it so many different advanced features, stuff that just couldn't be done for 7 years since the last model. It was a single observer, very, very basic. We can see here too, we have all the planets. So when people try to talk about older models like Walter Bislin, there's no planets. There's only one star, Polaris, in his app. And you might have actually noticed in mine, we got the Southern Cross. Let me just show you actually the Dome Refraction for the Southern Cross. This is actually going to be something you've never seen in your lifetime. No one will actually show you this picture, mainly because a lot of people will try to lie to you and say the Southern Cross doesn't exist. It's easier for me to lie to you than to have to explain the toroidal geometry and have many equatorial grids that people will get mad at me for. It's much easier for me to lie and just say, yeah, the South Celestial Pole doesn't exist, the Southern Cross doesn't exist, but that's not true, because you can see it with yourself. There's, like, I'm an admin of a Flat Earth group. We have 28,000 people, the Firmament Trackers. You can apply to join, and if you're like qualified, you'll come in. But there's people that are in the south celestial pole taking pictures of what I'm showing you on screen as it rotates around. They see the Southern Cross rotating around them. But see my mouse, it's going to be a small, but there's big circles and small circles. So that's actually pretty cool. This is 8K zoomed up really close, and you can still make out the details. So you can clearly see the 4 stars that make up the Southern Cross, and you can see what is on the dome firmament. And you can see how it doesn't actually look the exact same way outside of the firmament. And this is a really good example when people get confused asking about the difference between the apparent and the physical. For a lot of stuff like the sun, you're never going to notice it because it's only one object. But when you're talking about a set of constellations, the 4 stars are still on the firmament, moving around once every 24 hours. But the way it refracts through, we end up seeing it as the Southern Cross as there, and on the firmament we see it as a little bit different. I didn't make this up. This is the input of what's called celestial coordinate. So it's right ascension and declination. You can use any coordinates you want, and you can see I have the exact same setup for the planets and stars. Every observer has their whole sky mapped out for what they would be seeing. Even the moon, you can even trace the dome refraction of the moon to multiple observers. So you can see right here, it's just out of perspective. It would come up into perspective, and that's exactly what we see. And how we see it looks like the sun is actually rising out of the water and setting into the water, like you see in a sunrise and sunset. But obviously we know that's not true. Due to perspective, the farther something moves, the lower it will appear. At about 1 degree lower in elevation for every 69 miles it moves away. You can test that yourself, and that's what these little grids are. So a lot of people have been asking, what are the little grids? And it is your perspective. This dome can be of arbitrary size. It doesn't actually matter. It just looks good at this size, and all it is just an angle of elevation and a compass reading. That is it. So for example, right here, it'd be facing that way. So it'd be like an east reading of, that might be 35 degrees angle of elevation, a right angle. These are all right angles, so there's no curved surface. The right angle reading that my software gives you, because we tell you the angle of elevation of the sun for every observer as well, and that is a right angle triangle. That's the only way actually that celestial navigation can even be done. So dome refraction is just fascinating, and it's really interesting because it does refract. It's not a single, like, you know, you shine a laser through, and then no matter if you have multiple observers, everyone is looking at this light source. And it's really cool because you see point A to point B, C, D, E. Every single person has this light source, and the math makes perfect sense. You know, this person over here kind of in China faces south to see this sun. This person down here faces north to see the sun. It's extremely easy. The only part where it gets a little bit confusing is the people on the other side. This person here faces south, and that's because of the way the dome refracts. You can actually see too, light wraps around the dome. See that? Like, I'm not making this up. You can't do this on the globe. How do you get bendy light around dome firmaments on a globe? That's another reason why I argue that the flat earth model just makes more sense. The explanations are more coherent, more simple, and testable. And the software used for flat earth research is just so powerful. As I said, I'm not joking too. Find me, actually, I'll make you a deal. If you guys can find me globe software that can plot multiple observers like this, I will give you the academic version for free. So that's like a $20 platform. And you can even use this software to troll me. If you want to use this to try to disprove flat Earth, go ahead, I don't care. But I'll give you this software if you can find me globe software that can do multiple observers. I don't even know how dumb it would look. Like, I'm just trying to picture like a globe with multiple observers and you're trying to trace a line to the sun. It's not going to work. And I know it's not going to work because light has to bend. You can see how light bends no matter what in real life. If you map this on a globe, it's not going to work. That's what I believe, at least. Show me software that does multiple observers and I will admit I'm wrong and give you my software so you can troll me. But it's so cool. Like, we now know how dome refraction works. The research that has been done by people like Flat Earth Dave, Joe Hanvey, Stephen Alonzo. We know now what happens when you shine light through a dome. You get the 24-hour sun, and it's so exciting that the final experiment has now confirmed that. No longer do we need to wonder how exactly does flat Earth work. We know almost everything now. We have a very coherent, quantified model that puts us in a really powerful place moving forward for 2025. Yeah, just look at these angles. That's so cool. And it makes a lot of sense. So you see these arcs. That represents the path that the sun will take throughout the whole day. So the sun will arc over this observer like that. It'll go just around above them, where this one does circles in the sky. And you can see really that the only difference is on what side or how far away from the center of the Earth's Taurus field we are. That's why we have an equator. It's literally the middle of that Taurus field in the top left. That's like why we have star trails. So this grid also represents star trails. So you guys might be able to clue into your head. See this little guy right here? What would happen if we moved him to that red line? Well, you might be able to guess that it would look exactly like that image to the left, top left, where you have the straight line. You would look east or west and see a perfectly straight line up and down for your star trails, just like what the grid shows you. This is a flat Earth prediction that comes true because the Earth is flat. So yeah, the Taurus field is extremely important to understand. As I was saying, the equator is the middle of the Taurus field, which radiates out of Mount Meru. That's often thought to be in the North Pole. Again, we don't know. We might do a final experiment 2 where we go to the North Pole to see if we can find Mount Meru. But regardless, we can measure Earth's magnetic field. We can look at star trails. We know how perspective works. So the toroidal geometry, the physics is different from the math. I'm more of a math guy. I can tell you what's going to happen and we can test it and prove it. And other people like Joe Hanvey, they're more into the physics of it. They have actual physical domes where they're shining light through it and they're seeing exactly what my software is predicting. It's fascinating. Yes, with the moon as well, you can see how the 24-hour moon would work, where it would work, the different types, and again, the dome refraction right up there. Just want to see what other ones do I have. So I think we're almost done everything. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you watch it in 4K. And this last part here, I've been working on a superfluid ceiling with Joe Hanvey. We want to be able to accurately represent more of the biblical principles, and he strongly believes, much that I do, that dome refraction 100% is what we're seeing. That is what we're seeing. Joe believes that there probably is a superfluid ceiling above us, and I can understand that. So I'm trying to work through a model with him. How can we represent his ideas into my ideas? Because a lot of what we're saying is 100% true. Path A to point B is gonna happen, and he's now looking more at the physical mechanism for that. What causes dome refraction? What is the firmament made of? Those are all amazing questions that we can now start to look at and move forward for flat earth science. So it's important you'll see that on the model we have the celestial objects like on the firmament. We're very clear that there is a refraction happening. Don't let anyone tell you light is inside reflecting. That's been falsified. The final experiment has falsified the idea that light is inside. It doesn't really work as well as how I would argue it has to be outside shining through. And feel free to clip these videos. You can reproduce them anywhere. I don't mind at all. I tend to put up stuff in like the bottom right corner. You see how it says Firmament Trackers Academic? So that way, if someone does see it like 5 different shares down the line, they can kind of trace it back. If someone wants this app, they should be able to find it. Or if they want to watch the Glyphs on Ice, the final experiment documentary coming out, they'll see that as well. And the top left image, a lot of their questions will be solved, because when you start talking about perspective, people are asking why, how do you quantify it, and a lot of people are very familiar with this toroidal geometry. So in the comments, let me know what questions you guys have. I recently did this because someone was asking how would it work with multiple observers, and I also just want to show you guys how powerful the flat earth model is. The globe can't do this. Thank you.